So how do you go from that and doing all of the covers and having the original music of It Lives, It Breathes, and then all of a sudden parlay that into, okay, now Will Ospreay wants us to write a theme for him. How does that work?
We basically, like, those things had picked up. I mean, and it was crazy because nothing had ever become like viral huge. They were just getting solid attention, enough for us to keep building on it and keep trying different covers and seeing what stuck. Because at that point, what made it fun was that we weren't worrying about anything becoming viral. We're just having fun doing this, and we're wanting to keep it going and seeing what happened, not having to really worry about anything becoming famous because we were just in the process of writing for our next record. And this was kind of like transitioning us across. And then, but it was apparently enough for me to just all of a sudden wake up one day, and I think it was just look on Twitter, and people were just sending us in Will's replies when Will had just basically been looking for a new theme. And I think it was around like 2016, 2015 that he was looking to do this. Like, he was still in the junior heavyweights at New Japan. And he just made a tweet that he was looking for someone, like, a new theme. And if there was any bands or anything out there, I would love to go and be able to find that, just to kind of like as a like an archive and be like, wow, that's where it all started. And everybody was kind of sending us in the replies, and that was really weird because there weren't a bunch of others, but by this point, like I think a band like Downstate, which is kind of like one of the, as far as like a band doing what we're kind of talking about here, I would say they're
Yeah.
kind of like one of the only, if the only pioneer to really kind of try to do stuff like that was really into that. And we're kind of, I mean, I hadn't even thought of them when I thought to do this, but maybe I did at the time. But they were sending our name, probably because we had just been releasing those a few months prior. And he and I went right into email after that. And the only thing that mattered to me was what he himself was into, like what he wanted out of a theme. Because we don't want to just kind of be shooting something generic at the artist. It needs to fit the artist. And another thing for me too, and I don't know about other artists that do this for bands, I mean, or do this for wrestlers, is what their story is. Especially if we have to write lyrics to it originally, we're trying to like really understand their story. I mean, for me, it's not so hard. I still want to talk to the wrestler themselves and get their perspective, especially if they're like changing their character and have like something new they're infusing, and that has to be part of what the new song is if they're changing a song or doing something like that. But it's just it helps to be a fan because you already know a lot of what they're about. They're not like conscripting just Guns N' Roses, or whatever famous band that may not even be fans of wrestling, that just tends to be like, yeah, I got to write this theme for like a wrestler, so I got to kind of figure out what this is all about. Like, we're fans. It's a lot easier for us to write for them. We understand their story and we are emotionally invested. And I feel like that gives us an edge when writing for them because we care about them. We care about their characters. We care about the stories because we're literally sitting there watching it week to week. By then I had like known of him, but I think it was soon after him and Ricochet had kind of like created their little viral wave. So I thought it was a really like cool opportunity, especially with what he wanted at that time, to kind of just like start creating that road with him. I in no way expected it to be what it turned into now, and hopefully what it turns into in the future. But I am like, from the first time I saw that clip and then watched other stuff of him in New Japan, was just like, I always had that feeling in my gut, and that he was special, and knew in my gut that when we wrote his theme needed to be something just as special that could sound timeless. Like, I didn't want it to be a theme that would just kind of last for the next 3 years and then could write something new for him.
Right.
Like, I wanted it to, even if it did change, I wanted it to potentially be a theme that could be for the rest of his career. It needed to be that good. Like, there are some guys that have had theme changes, and some of them are like whatever in the eyes of the fans. And then some guys have theme changes that are just as epic as the first. It's kind of like, like Chris Jericho's had many themes, but he's also like that master of reinvention. So it kind of like works in tandem with what he's doing in his career.
Yeah.
but there are some guys that have themes that are synonymous with them. And I wanted at least his to have that kind of opportunity to
Yeah.
go into play. And he said when we got the email going, he was basically just like, I was like, what kind of genres are you into? And he was like, either like hip hop or big epic arena rock, like Linkin Park, things like that. And I was like, well, I mean, it really worked in tandem with like kind of our interests, what we were writing at the time, what we've kind of always had like as a general mindset. Like Linkin Park was always one of those key bands in our mental state about
Will
like,
always be a staple band.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're a
absolutely.
staple for everyone. So that's kind of like speaking too broad, but like there are a lot of bands that the way that they think about music still kind of steps away with that. Like they'll be like, yeah, I'm a fan of Linkin Park, but when you hear the way they write their music and how epic they're afraid to go that epic. And a band like Linkin Park was a band we always had to keep in mind as far as like the way to approach the bigness and the intensity of how you're gonna when it comes to specifically things like a chorus and how that's supposed to stick in somebody's head. And so once he said stuff like that, I knew that it was right in line with something that I could provide, because I also didn't want him to provide a genre that I was like, yeah, this is not something I would be able to deliver, and I wouldn't want to do a disservice to him. But when I heard his reply back, then I knew that it was something that I could deliver on. It keeps getting cooler because now even the way the entrance is in AEW, it's been curated to the actual visual of his entrance with so when I wrote the bridge of the song, the Ospreay vocal bridge, that was one thing that took longer than anything else to catch up. So the AEW production, kudos to them and how they've set that up with finally engaging that with how the fans chant back, because that is what I truly in my head always wanted to really see. And that's the thing now that gets me like really emotional. And it's got to get something that it's got a lesson for me at some point, because I get emotional every time I see that week to week, or even if it's on Collision. That can't happen every time. Like my tear ducts, and I'm not even being disingenuous. Like I'm way too emotional about that kind of stuff because we're pretentious artists. So it's like
So
when that
AEW, if
happens,
you're
like
listening
every
to this, don't
single
make Kevin
week,
cry. That's the
yeah, I
point.
can't